Kaibigan, ikaw. Oo, ikaw. Alam mo bang magbuhat ng nasa sinapupunan ka ng iyong ina ay consumer ka na? Ang boses mo ay mahalaga. Nabibilang ka sa komunidad na kumukonsumo sa laksa-laksa at iba-ibang produkto na mayroon tayo noon hanggang ngayon. Pagkain, gamit sa bahay, gadgets, telepono, computer, kuryente, bumbilya, semento, uling, gulay, pasyalan, resorts, kopras, internet, tubig, loan, bangko, kape, asukal, asin, at kung ano-ano pa. Lahat ng ating kinukonsumo at binibili ay dapat may karampatang kalidad at tamang presyo sa merkado. Kaya halika na, tambay na dito sa programang magbibigay impormasyon at tatalakay sa mahahalagang issue na mayroon tayo hinggil sa konsumerismo. Ito ang Consumer's Desk.
Hello everyone, this is Dean Rodel Taton and this is Consumer's Desk. Sama-sama na naman tayo sa isang edisyon ng Consumer's Desk kung saan tayo ay mag-uusap-usap tungkol sa mga issues which involve all of us.
Happy Sunday and hello to our viewers on Facebook and YouTube from all over the Philippines and the rest of the world. This is your host, Vanessa Oyas. Welcome to Consumer's Desk.
It's nice to be with you again, Vanessa, and it's nice to discuss another important issue that involves all of us. And this time we'll be talking about Facebook. We heard lately that Facebook has taken down several accounts based in China and the Philippines because of coordinated inauthentic behavior, which is a violation of Facebook's community policy. And sinasabi nga dito, Vanessa, that these are issues na nag-involve even the government of the Philippines and private individuals involved in these pages.
Alam mo din, tama yan, na nag-trending talaga itong issue na to ng Facebook because even the president ay nasali at umabot sa kanya, umabot sa Malacanang yung ganitong kind of issue. So talagang napaka-hot na topic to as of now.
Exactly, it did not sit well with the president. And to the point na, alam naman natin na we are a social media capital in the world. And ang Facebook has a very big role to play, especially at these recent times, especially during the pandemic, Vanessa.
I agree with you, Dean, kasi sabi nga, lahat tayo ay consumers ng application na ito. In fact, talagang naging napakalakas ng application na to dahil nag-evolve siya eh. Noon, this is just made to connect people all over the world. But right now, marami na siyang features like may marketplace na, may dating na dyan, and lahat-lahat. So
Yun
talagang,
yung favorite mo yata.
ay hindi. Doon tayo sa marketplace din kasi kahit ako, bumibili dyan sa Facebook.
Yes, exactly. It has become a very large market, a marketplace where there is intricacy involved here, which is not only about the products or services, but even our rights as individuals. Kasi involved dito, halimbawa, free speech, or is it tantamount to censorship? And yes, of course, and this all we'll be discussing in today's episode.
At maraming rights yung involved sa ganitong issue. But before we proceed to our discussion today, let us first watch this video.
Inanunsyo ng Facebook na tinanggal o tinake down nila ang ilang Chinese-controlled accounts dahil sa coordinated inauthentic behavior.
Recently, Facebook took down fake accounts that had links in China and in the Philippines. According to Facebook, these networks had used fake accounts to post information about a variety of subjects related to Philippine politics. Accordingly, for breaching its policy on coordinated inauthentic behavior, these fake accounts were removed. It said these networks had misled users about their identities. The action of the social media platform did not, however, sit well on President Rodrigo Duterte. In one of his speeches, Duterte addressed the issue and accused Facebook of helping and encouraging communists by blocking the government's efforts.
From what I have learned in the past days, na pati yung advocacy ng gobyerno tinatanggal. You know, Facebook insurgency is about overturning government. What would be the point, I said before, in my eyes, what would be the point of allowing you to continue if you cannot help us?
the president even threatened to stop Facebook in the Philippines. But for a country that has been considered as a social media capital of the world, what does Facebook's action and President Duterte's reaction mean to an ordinary individual? How did it affect the behavior of the users and the consumers of the said application? Lahat ng yan ay tatalakayin natin sa isa na namang panibagong episode na tiyak marami tayong matututunan. Kaya tutok na sa mas pinalakas na boses ng consumer, ito ang Consumer's Desk.
Welcome back to Consumer's Desk. We are joined by a very special guest today. Vanessa, do the honors of introducing our guest.
Yes, Dean, we are joined today by a senior lawyer at Divina Law, a professor of law at San Sebastian College and University of Santo Tomas, a technology and media law expert. We have with us today Attorney J.R. Ipa.
Thank you.
Hello,
Good afternoon.
attorney.
Thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you very much, Attorney JR, for gracing our program. It is really nice to be with a technology and media law expert, and of course, my co-professor in both schools that he is teaching. Pero my first question, Attorney JR, would be, when we mentioned about Facebook earlier, we are talking about consumers also. Are the users of Facebook considered as consumers as well?
Actually, Dean, that's a very interesting question. No? Number one kasi, no, Facebook, we look at it, social media platform, ayaw nating tignan to from a consumer perspective.
Yes.
But actually, all of the users, lahat ng gumagamit ng Facebook, tayong lahat, considered tayong consumer ng application at platform na to. At ang reason kung bakit natin ma-consider yung sarili natin as consumers here is because pag ginamit natin yung platform, yung information na ibinibigay natin to the platform itself, it's actually the currency that we are using to pay for the services that in turn Facebook gives us. So
And we are saying that consumer involve, for example, goods or services or products or services. And for
That's
this
right.
for this one, it's services.
That's right.
And makikita natin hindi lang services really ang involved dito sa Facebook application because as mentioned by Vanessa earlier, may marketplace where there is a movement of goods and money at the same time. So what can you say about this new perspectives of Facebook and how the consumers relate to these developments in this application?
Actually, that area din, no, Vanessa, this area of Facebook technology, no, it's very, very interesting area because it's very dynamic. No? Pag sinabi natin dynamic, walang masyadong clear-cut na regulations dito. No? As correctly mentioned kanina, while Facebook is a platform, it functions in a several way. No? Hindi lang siya marketplace, hindi lang siya place where people could meet. Ang isang importanteng aspeto ng Facebook is that it's actually right now the new public square where people, no, the public, tayong mga citizens of the country, can engage in debate, exchange ideas, criticize, give comments, and essentially share everything that we have to other people. And these pieces of information is actually the new currency also. Right?
And in fact, even the news agencies are having their programs live in the application, no?
That's right.
And di ba, like ABS-CBN, nawala sila sa ere, sa free TV, pero nandito sila sa Facebook.
That's right.
And the people can easily share their commentaries on the government or even the products.
I agree with you, attorney, no? Pero yung, di ba, vast yung scope ngayon ng Facebook eh. Pero how do you see ba yung behavior ngayon ng consumers natin? Lalo na at ngayon na naka-quarantine tayo. So, nag-shift digitally lahat ng mga tao ngayon kasi nga we have to observe social distancing and stuff like that.
That's right. Right now, Facebook has grown from an application which has very few users several years ago. Right now, the function of Facebook has been very dominant in our lives. In other words, halos lahat ng kakilala natin, no, from the very moment that they wake up in the morning, they check their Facebook, they check their status, they check what's been shared by their friends, and every form of communication, may messenger, all of this. So, at the end of the day, what happened actually, given the pandemic pa, no, we have become very, very dependent on Facebook as a very dominant platform. At isang bagay dyan, since Facebook is a US-based company, we have to also understand na, in fact, in the US, the reach and influence of Facebook has forced the government to actually conduct hearings and find out whether antitrust laws in the United States should apply. So, ngayon, yung Facebook is like a living organism that governments are trying to find out what exactly is this living organism. Whether it is really, is it a public utility? Or is it another means of sharing information? It has grown into such a very, very humongous and influential entity.
And especially in the Philippines, that it's free for certain
Networks.
like networks, no?
That's right.
They will just pay a certain amount, and for 3 days or 5 days, libre na ang paggamit nito, no? And you mentioned about the effects to the people, and the behavior has been changed, and the network has become so vast that actions cannot entirely be seen in one perspective lang. And ano nga ba ang mga laws na involved dito? Are there even laws that affect the
Use.
or the use, or even regulates the use of Facebook, Attorney JR?
Very interesting question din, Vanessa. No? Actually, for our purposes, the one that you mentioned kanina, that's very true, that's very right. Regarding the recent incident involving Facebook's shutting down of some Facebook pages accused of coordinated inauthentic behavior. So one very fundamental law, very fundamental aspect that we have to consider in that particular action ng Facebook is yung tinatawag nating freedom of speech, freedom of expression, which is constitutionally embodied. No? Apart from that, number two na very important, especially for consumers in general, ay yung data privacy that is involved for using Facebook. The reason for this, na-mention ko nga kanina, no, is that we are using Facebook, it seems, tinitignan natin, libre siya, wala naman tayong binabayaran. Pero actually, ang binabayad natin dito is actually our personal information.
Exactly.
That makes the platform very, very valuable. Those are the two fundamental laws or regulations involved here, Dean and Vanessa.
And it involves our basic constitutional freedoms. Yes.
Alam mo, attorney, interested ako dun sa data privacy and the freedom of expression. But lahat yan ay i-discuss namin sa pagbabalik ng Consumer's Desk.
Yon manok, ang manok na may kanin sa loob. Yon manok, soy chicken na may noodles. Noodles? Yon manok.
May liempo din sila.
Welcome back to Consumer's Desk. So kanina, before tayo nag-break, ay na-mention ni Attorney JR about sa freedom of expression and of speech, tsaka yung data privacy. Attorney, ano ba yung pwede mong sabihin sa ating mga consumers na nanonood ngayon about these issues na talagang affected pala siya with the use of Facebook?
That's right. Actually, our consumers, they have to be informed, no? Ano ba talaga yung nangyari dito sa takedown na to? Because I've seen a couple of articles, for instance, or news reports saying that Facebook took down those accounts on the claim that they constitute fake news. But Facebook itself, no, clarified, the head of their cybersecurity clarified that the reason for the takedown is not because it is fake news. The reason, as correctly mentioned by Dean, is that it's because of inauthentic coordinated behavior. And we have to distinguish that. And the reason for this is that Facebook itself is saying, ayaw naming maging arbiter of the truth. So we don't want to find out whether it's really false news or not. At ang reason dito ng Facebook is because they're saying, as with all tech companies, we are just a platform. As a platform, we are not supposed to do these things. This is the platform where people are supposed to engage in transactions. So that's the first thing. Facebook now is saying for taking it down, so they have no quarrel with the content. They don't want, ayaw ng Facebook na alamin or i-judge for themselves kung false or fake is ba to o hindi. What they are saying is that they did take down these accounts because number one, the owners of these accounts apparently misrepresented what is the origin, their purpose, their association. So in other words, ang reason ng Facebook dito for the takedown, Vanessa, is that apparently this pages have been engaged in some deceptive behavior without regard doon sa content ng mga messages na to. I think yun yung pinaka-importante because the government, legitimate din ang pinanggagalingan ng government dito. They're saying that, wait, Facebook, no? In effect, you are censoring our freedom of speech also.
Yes.
But the
And
interesting
that's another
part,
side. Actually, that's another side
yes.
of the line, no? We spoke of free speech and expression. And paano naman natin, Attorney JR, matutulungan ang ating mga consumers? How can we protect our freedoms in Facebook?
Very interesting question, Dean. No? Before I answer that particular question, I would have to share lang very briefly what are the other efforts being done, say, by the government
Yes,
or
that's
by the
interesting.
private entity in order to safeguard these rights. No? For instance, one, yun nga yung pinaka-purpose, in fact, of the terms of use or community policy ng Facebook. So it's a private initiative in trying to sort out which is what information should be circulating, what they can flag, and that's why they have this inauthentic coordinated behavior as part of their policy. Number two, very important on the part of the government, because a couple of years, maybe 1 or 2 years ago or so, there are actually pending bills in Congress trying to regulate or to penalize itong pagkalat nga ng fake news. So there's also an effort on the part of the private and then the government. Ang naging problem lang dun sa fake news, of course, pending bills is that it has to address certain challenges regarding possible suppression of freedom of speech because of this bill, so kaya pending siya.
Even as to the definitions.
That's right, Dean. Very, very difficult to define yung scope nito, no? But insofar as our consumers are concerned, especially right now that wala namang regulation doon, and then Facebook right now, although they have these policies, seldom would people actually check it. That's why yung regarding going back to your question din as to what the consumers could do, meron tayong tinatawag din na information media literacy.
Yes, that's correct.
That is very, very important, and this is something na kailangan malaman at talagang i-imbibe, no, or intindihin ng ating mga consumers. No? And that's one thing is that bago sila gumamit ito mga Facebook applications na to, number one, they should, if they could, meron silang time, they have to read at least the policies of how they can protect themselves. That's number
Yun
one.
usually nakakaligtaan eh.
Yun,
when you signed in or signed up rather,
That's
'di ba?
right.
Usually hindi mo binabasa.
Hindi
Hindi binabasa.
Kaya nga din, so yung number two na pwede nating mabigay sa ating mga consumers is that, of course, when they use these applications, they have to be very aware na not everything that you can find on Facebook is the truth, no?
Yes,
They have to
exactly.
be discerning. That's why whenever you search and read something, they have to find sino ba ang source nito, gaano ba ka-credible to, okay? Ano ang pinanggalingan na information nito. So they have to be very discerning then and medyo critical because otherwise, Facebook, fake news, parang virus, is very, parang COVID-19 actually,
Yes.
it spreads very fast.
Exactly.
So that's why we have to be very discerning and we have to educate ourselves also.
Kaya maganda talaga kanina yung pag-clarify mo din sa issue, kung ano ba talaga yung naging reason behind the Facebook na action, no?
And that's we are also saying to our consumers, usually you have the right to know, the right to information, and kailangan nating alamin kung anong mga nakapalibot sa mga ginagawa natin. And as commonly said, di ba, read before you click, especially at this time.
And this is actually a good platform then to remind yung mga consumers natin, no, to be very mindful yung mga actions nila on the social media, lalo na sa Facebook.
Sinabi nga kanina ni Attorney JR about content other than the free flow of ideas na dalawang bahagi na sinabi niya kanina. As to content, how can the consumers have a control on the content of their posts or their comments or in their use of this social media application, Attorney JR?
Very interesting yet tricky question din, no? We have to medyo distinguish to, no? First, on one hand, okay, we have to, nasabi mo kanina, kailangan natin maging mapanuri sa ating paggamit ng social media platforms. At pag sinabi natin actually na maging mapanuri, it means that we cannot just simply share everything that we receive. We have to find out first kung ano bang source nito. And then before we share it, we have to find out, am I helping others in doing this, no? Or am I contributing something else that will harm actually others? Yun yung first aspect din in Vanessa. And then yung second aspect siguro na importante, has something to do sa ating kultura ng mga Pilipino. In fact, merong isang study na nagsabi, no, na ang mga matatanda, ito daw ay talagang medyo purveyors of fake news, no? Because ang reason dito,
Click ng click, share
click
ng
ng click,
share.
they want it, no? Hindi sila digital native, no? My mother's also a senior citizen. Right now, she's learning to use social media, and then what we have to do is actually to try to help and educate them in a respectful and a very polite way.
Yes.
No? Because we have to share what we know, no? Sometimes isipin natin na parang hahayaan natin silang gawin yon, thinking na baka ma-offend natin sila. But sometimes actually mas importante that we have to share with them what we know so that they can also be educated. Remember na ang sabi nga nila, no, it takes a village to raise a child. So in the same manner sa senior citizen din siguro,
di ba?
right?
Technology.
That's right, Vanessa. So it has to be a collective effort, no, in sharing correct and appropriate
Exactly.
information.
With all due respect sa ating mga elderly na nanonood, mga consumer natin na hindi naman sa edad yan eh. It's not about the age, but importante tayo ay natututo at tayo ay gumagalaw. Sa ating pagbabalik, inyong tunghayan ang ating Consumers Review.
Yon manok, ang manok na may kanin sa loob. Manok, soy chicken na may noodles. Noodles? Yon manok.
May liempo din sila.
Hibiscus, napapanahon ang pagtuklas natin sa mga benepisyong na idudulot sa ating katawan ng halamang ito. Sa pagbisita natin sa Roselle Farms, tayo naman, kasama kayo, ang tutuklas sa kanilang mga produkto na hango sa Roselle Flower. Hello mga kaibigan! We are here in the peaceful mountains of Tanay. As you can see sa background natin, nakikita nyo rin ang mga magagandang produkto na mamaya mapag-uusapan natin. Tutunghayan natin ang mga to. Kasama ko dito ang ating mga kaibigan, si Ate Ellen and si Ate Rose. Mag-hello tayo sa mga viewers natin. Hello! So, Ate Ellen and Ate Rose, no? Sisimulan na natin to. Magkwento naman kayo tungkol sa samahan nyo.
Actually, bago kami nag-come out ng ganito, inorganisa muna namin ang aming mga sarili bilang mga dumagat remontado ng Tanay. So nagkaroon kami ng samahan na kung saan ito'y tinatawag na tukduan. Tunghayan at ugnayan sa kuyambay ng mga dumagat remontado para unawain ang aral ng mga ninuno. Nung nagkaroon kami ng samahan na ganito, pakiramdam kasi namin ay mas magiging kikilos kami na parang iisa. Meron kaming tutunguhin na parang iisa rin din. Kaya sa tingin namin, para kami ay mas lalo pang magpatuloy at maging progresibo, kailangan yung samahan namin ay maging tuloy-tuloy o yung sustainable na sinasabi. Kaya naisip namin, bakit hindi natin pasukan ng livelihood? At noon naman, ay meron na talagang sama kayo, na kung saan si Ate Rose din ang namumuno o yung nagli-lead doon sa samahan na yon. At ang maganda lang, ang natuklasan namin kasi, ang sama kayo ay samahan ng mga katutubo dito sa Kuyambay na mga nanay. So yun yung maganda doon. Kaya sabi ko, bakit hindi ang sama kayo ay mapaloob sa samahan ng mga katutubo na tukduan, na kung saan pagdating sa livelihood, sila ang kikilos para sa tukduan. Kasi ang tukduan ay hindi lamang para sa livelihood. Malalim kasi ang pinagmumulan ng tukduan. Ito kasi ang tingin namin na magsasalba sa mayamang kultura ng mga dumagat remontado dito sa Barangay Cuyambay. Kaya naisipan namin na para masustinahan yung mga proyekto na patungkol sa aming kultura, kailangan meron din kaming livelihood na kagaya ng ginagawa ng Sama Kayo.
Nakikita natin, no, ang mga produkto nyo dito, may mix ng heritage, culture, and health benefits. Ngayon, Ate Ellen and Ate Rose, can you guide us through the description of this main component, yung hibiscus?
So, yun nga, Ate Rose, di ba, sa mga matatanda namin dati, ang rosal flower ay pangpaasim lang. So, pangdagdag ng sa niluluto. So, habang umiinog yung panahon, ay meron pa pala siyang ibang magandang pwedeng paggamitan. Kagaya ng?
Katulad ng rosal tea, ng rosal wine, jam, marami pa pong iba. So, ang rosal po ay napakaraming benefits na makukuha sapagkat ito ay nagmula din sa organic. Tinatanim namin to na walang chemical.
Okay.
Kaya po yung aming samahan na Sama Kayo ay samahan ng mamamayan ng Cuyambay sa asenso at yamang organiko. So, yung iba pong nakikita nyo dyan na soap, yan po ay mula sa honey na ito po ay nanggaling sa aming kagubatan. Nandun po yung tinatawag naming beeswax. At nilagyan din po namin ng honey na fresh, katulad po ng lip balm, ganun din po. So, ang iba pong product namin dyan, mga product ay salabat, may sambong, pero po, ang mabili po sa amin ay ang rosel.
Rosel, okay.
Rosel flower po. Dahil nakita po nila yung kagalingan. Nag-enjoy ka ng kumain, uminom, may benefits ka nakukuha.
Kasi dati ba naman yung rosel flower, kala nyo yung pampaano lang, di ba? Pampasour, parang pasigang, di ba?
Yes,
Pampasinigang, parang
opo.
ganon. Tapos ngayon, nakikita nyo, ang dami palang health benefits and very marketable pala tong si rosel flower. Oo. Paki-elaborate naman, Ate Ellen and Ate Rose, no? Kung paano yung step-by-step process natin sa pag-harvest ng ating rosel flower up to the finished product.
Okay po. Ang rosel flower po ay tinatanim ng mga katutubo ng month of May. Hina-harvest siya ng October hanggang December. So, hina-harvest po nila yan, hindi po nila masyadong pinabubuka yung flower. Kasi mas po siya, mas marami
Juicy.
pa siyang katas or juicy. Hina-harvest po nila yan, dinideliver sa amin. Idinadry po namin dahil meron po kaming dryer na kami lang po ang meron na provide naman po ito ng government agency na nagbigay sa amin, ang DOST. Opo, binigyan po kami niyan. At yung pong jam naman po, ginagawa po namin yan, kailangan ka-harvest ng flower.
Yung fresh pa siya.
Fresh
pa.
Oo, tatanggalin mo lang yung pinakang seeds dun
Sa loob.
yung flower niya kasi sa middle part niya merong buto. So tatanggalin mo siya kapag yung gagawin mo na siyang jam.
Okay.
So mas fresh, mas maganda para sa jam.
Kaya garantisadong fresh ang kanilang mga produkto. Oo. Saka yung mga honey naman, ganun din katagal. Matagal-tagal din yung paggawa.
Ang honey naman po,
Summer pa lang.
summer pa lang, nag-harvest na po ang mga katutubo sa aming bundok.
Nag-harvest na yung mga katutubo. Tapos matagal yung pag-gather or
Basta
madali lang
during
yun?
summer kasi siya, doon siya marami, doon siya abundant. Kaya kailangan summer season, marami ka nang maiipon ng mga honey. Oo.
Oh, sige, I'm thinking about this, no? About the products you have now. Sino yung mga bumibili sa inyo, mga customer ngayon? Sino yung mga nyo na customers?
Actually, 'di ba Ate Rose, ang mga consumer namin ay yung mga walk-in lang.
Mga walk-in.
Halimbawa, yung bisita namin sa community, kinukwento namin yung aming mayamang kultura. Kasama na rin doon ay yung aming ng mga produkto. So yun, mga walk-in lang siya. Kasi nga ay takot pa kaming sumubok ng malaki dahil baka hindi namin ma-sustain yung pagpuproduce ng produkto.
Definitely naman, nakikita natin ang bright future ng mga products natin. Saka soon, may mga makakatulong at makakatulong rin sa atin para mapalago ang mga produkto natin at yung marketing. Ano yung mga goals nyo, no? Yung for the future, ano nakikita nyo na yung growth, for the growth of the product na pwede nating gawin? Yung nakikita nyo, gusto nyo ba na pumunta sa Luzon yung products? I mean, sa mga supermarket sa Metro Manila?
Isa po yung pangarap namin na mapalaki yung production ng Roselle Jam, wine, at saka yung tsaa namin. At yung iba pa naming produkto. Sa ngayon, unti-unti namin ginagawa muna yung mga tamang proseso para in the long run, parang hindi ba bigla? No, bigla na lang siyang nag-boost, tas bigla din siyang nawala. Kasi nga, parang kultura din namin yun eh. Gusto namin siya mag-long last hanggang sa susunod na younger generation.
Ibig sabihin, wag pa bugso-bugso ang ating paggawa. Always has to be the right preparation, the right time, di ba? And the right marketing. Kaya yon, I think naman magiging hit to sa Metro Manila. So, Ate Ellen and Ate Rose, how do we reach you po, no? For example, gusto natin ma-order yung products nyo, gusto natin matikman yung mga Roselle flower products, and of course, the lip balm. How do we reach you? Paano ho kaya?
Okay. Sa mga gusto pong subukan ng aming mga produkto, ay pasyalan nyo lang po kami dito sa aming katutubong paaralan, School of Living Tradition in Rizal, dito sa Barangay Cuyambay. Kasi bukod po sa pagbili ng aming mga produkto, ay dapat matutunan nyo po ang mayamang kultura ng mga dumagat.
Is there any number that we can reach you with when we want to order yung mga products nyo?
Sa ngayon po kasi ay wala pa po kaming Facebook page or media page. So kung gusto niyo po kaming ma-reach ay kumontak lamang po kayo sa Consumers Desk. Yan, kasi sa amin ay nagtitiwala po kami sa kanila. So yun po.
At mutual ang ating admiration. Nagtitiwala rin kami sa inyo at sa mga products nyo. Kaya yon, salamat Ate Ellen and Ate Rose.
Makmok ka salamat.
Yes. Paano nyo sabihin yon?
Makmok ka salamat.
Makmok ka salamat. Salamat. Muli kami nagpapasalamat sa inyong pagtangkilik sa aming programa na Consumers Desk. Ako po si Tin Reyes para sa Consumers Review.
So yun guys, nakita po ninyo yung ating Consumers Review. Ngayon naman, babalikan natin si Attorney JR. Kasi Attorney JR, nahalata ko, yung mga tao kasi ngayon sa social media, kahit ano na lang yung pinupost eh. So kanina nag-mention ka about freedom of expression and of speech. Saan ba dito natin idodraw yung line sa pag-express ng ating mga opinions tsaka sa pagiging mindful kung ano yung ipopost natin, lalo na ngayon at meron mga cases like cyber libel na nakukuha dahil sa mga Facebook posts?
Very interesting question, Vanessa. No? Right now, in fact, ang daming lumalabas na mga cybercrime or cyber-related cases involving cyber libel, and then being filed ang problem pa nun. For instance, former relationship, no? So actually, very, very timely yan right now, especially na lahat ng mga tao ngayon talagang nakatuon sa phone nila. Wala silang magawa, bored na bored sila. So they want to share a lot of things, no? Kanina na-mention natin ang mga consumers, citizens, no? Of course, we have that freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Guaranteed to na ating saligang batas. Pero itong mga freedom na ito, no, kalayaan natin ito, it does not actually give us, on the other hand, unbridled license naman to do everything that we want to do naman on the other hand. So that's why very interesting yung ginamit ng term kanina, Vanessa. No? So where do we draw the line here, especially pagdating sa ating paggamit ng social media? Ang term natin dyan, very important right now, responsible social media use. No? So ano ibig sabihin nito? No? So ibig sabihin, pag ginamit natin yung social media, tignan natin, number one, no? Itong bang mga isinishare natin na information, hindi ba magiging harmful to later sa atin or sa ibang tao? That's number one, no? Number two, bago tayong mag-post, mag-share, okay? Sinasabi nga, it cannot be overemphasized We have to think before we click.
Yes.
Yes.
Laging pinapaalala to. Laging pinapaalala. Pero lagi rin natin namang nakakalimutan. Kaya we want to keep reminding our consumers, our dear consumers, we have to think before we click. So kung meron tayong hindi maganda sasabihin, for instance, pag-isipan na muna natin kasi baka yung pagiging intemperate natin, baka later on we find ourselves behind bars.
Pagsisisihan,
That's
no?
right. So we have to be responsible social media users even though meron tayong tinatawag na freedom of speech or freedom of expression din on the other hand.
Yes. You mentioned earlier about, for instance, sa relationships or even issues on mental health. Kasi kung ano-anong mga pinopost ng mga individuals minsan, so nare-raise itong mga issues that touches on the persona of individuals. No, and sinabi nga natin kanina, you have to be responsible. Pero Attorney JR, kung ang isang tao ba, for instance, ang isang consumer, na may sinabi sa kanya, ang fellow user ng Facebook, sinabi sa Facebook na ganito, ganyan, or irresponsible na statements in social media, can that be actionable, or can one person file a case against that person based on the social media post?
Tama yan na Dean Taton. In fact, masyado na tayong maraming kaso niyan na medyo irresponsible use of social media. May sinabing hindi maganda, libelous statements, no? Actionable
Cyber
yan.
libel.
Cyber libel, no? At yung post niyang yun ay pwede actually gamitin against him or her later on. So dapat yung mga sinasabi natin, no? Yung mga content nito, no? Especially kung makakasama ito to another individual, kailangan nating pag-isipan to, no? In fact, very recently during the pandemic, very popular, naging trending din to, Vanessa and Dean Taton, no? One of the a famous celebrity filed or was contemplating of filing a case before the NBI or the PNP because of some comments of netizens na medyo bordering on either libelous or medyo sexual harassment. So we have to be very careful as
Even
consumers.
Miss Universe, diba?
Oo, sa Catriona.
That's right. So we have to be very careful, responsible din dahil right now, no, meron tayong cyber libel law. So pag ginamit natin ang social media in an irresponsible way, we might regret it later.
So you mentioned about comments. Is making comments ba based on the law pwede ka bang filean ng kaso dahil sa comment mo or sa original post ng Attorney JR?
Actually, napaka-interesting question yan din, Tato, no? Kasi meron ng ruling yung Supreme Court natin dyan in the case, I think 2014 case of Dicini, no? Kung yung post mo ay number 1, sabihin muna natin kung siya ay libelous, kung magka-qualify siya doon. Ngayon, kung nagdoon yung element na yon, ang next natin na titignan, yun bang tao na nila-libel mo, easily identifiable ba siya doon sa statement mo? Ngayon, kung itong dalawang elemento na to ay essentially nandun, baka magkaroon ka na ng prima facie finding na libelous. Pero, on the other hand, na-mention mo din, no, yung mga comment, kasi maraming pwedeng maging klase ng komento dito.
Yes, exactly.
No? So, kung ikaw ay nag-like, for instance, no, or nag-heart in the Facebook platform, yun ang ginamit mo, no? At nag-agree ka sa isang libelous statement, for instance, sabi ng ating Korte Suprema, hindi yun pwedeng gamitin, no, as a abetting libel dahil masyado nga namang vague yung ganong klaseng pag-libel. Pero kung yung basihan para kasuhan ka ng libel ay mismong galing sa'yo at yung mismong content ng sinabi mo, malinaw na libelous ito, no? Tinawag mo siya ng hindi maganda, no? Gumamit ka ng hindi magandang lingwahe. At nakikita at na madaling ma-identify kung sino yung taong yun. Mag-fall na ito sa cyber libel.
That's right, Attorney JR. Maganda talaga tong time to remind our viewers na kahit yung public figures pala have still the right, no? So, hindi talaga dapat natin sila gawa ng comments or bigyan ng comments na libelous in our social media account.
As you said kanina, Van, we really have to think, sabi nga din ni Attorney JR, we have to think, read before we click. Bago natin yun i-post publicly or even among small groups. Kasi ang elemento naman ng pag-share or public is kung may nakakabasa na 3 tao or even more, di ba? So, how can we tell our consumers, again, just without being repetitious, no, kung paano tayo magiging isang responsableng Facebook user or social media application user as a consumer, Attorney JR?
Din, no, again, we cannot overemphasize yung responsibility, especially right now, that hindi lang tayo interconnected, but the pandemic has actually forced us to rely more and more on technology. Now, yung reliance natin doon and the power that this technology gives also demands from us some measure, some degree of responsibility. And yung responsibility na yon, I think right now, that's something that we should look inside ourselves. No? That while the technology allows us to, or empowers us, sabi nga, no, the internet has democratized access to information and everything and all of these things. It also created more responsibility on our part. And then pagdating sa ating social media use, alam mo, Dean and Vanessa, even prior pa naman dito sa advent of technology, no? Kahit wala naman tong technology na to, saying something libelous itself is already a crime, ano? So,
exactly.
The fact na meron tayong bagong technology, it only aggravates the situation dahil mas mabilis na kumakalat ang mga paninirang puri na to, lalong-lalo na kung yung pinanggalingan ng statement na to ay medyo walang basihan at talagang intention lang na manira ng ibang tao. So we have to verify.
Regardless of the medium, whether it's online or personal, kailangan maging careful tayo sa sasabihin natin. And I think that is a very good reminder to all our consumers naman.
So yun na nga din, no? Kanina diniscuss natin yung paano maging isang responsible consumer. Sa ating pagbabalik, malalaman naman natin at tatanungin natin si Attorney JR kung ano ba yung remedies if ever tayo yung mga victims of libelous statements posted on Facebook. Lahat ng yan sa aming pagbabalik.
Yard Menok, ang manok na may kanin sa loob. Menok, soy chicken na may noodles. Noodles? Yard Menok.
May liempo din sila.
Welcome back to Consumer's Desk. Dean, may mapasalamatan ka dyan.
Of course, we are very thankful for the support of our friends, particularly Dr. Trish of Dr. C's Advanced Aesthetics.
Hello, Dr. Trish. Thank
we
you.
have to thank, of course, Miss Donna Thorne for the set, Your Minok, Mr. Leo Gonzalez. We also thank Mr. Junki Kanimitsu and Marnelli, Grand Line Philippines Corporation for our home. And, of course, Ilonggo's Pride, La Paz Batchoy. And of course, Lights Camera Manila. Thank you very much for your support.
So yun nga din, no? Kanina, before tayo nag-break, meron tayong tanong kay Attorney JR. Ano naman ba, Attorney JR, yung mga remedies naman ng mga victims nitong mga libelous statements na pinupost online, lalo na sa Facebook?
Very timely yung question again of Vanessa and Dean kasi right now nga, we have a lot of people have become victims of cyber libel or cyberbullying. In fact, even, no? Very important, number one, if you have been a victim of for instance, a libelous statement, you have to kailangan nating magtabi ng kopya ng libelous statement na yun, no? Kunin natin yung screenshot nito bilang ebidensya later on na isasubmit natin sa PNP or sa NBI. Sa case may be, no?
Cybercrime Division.
Magpa-file tayo ng complaint. So, number two, very important din na pag nag-file tayo ng mga kasong to, meron tayong ebidensya na, no? So, sumangguni rin tayo sa kakilala natin na abogado. Very important yon dahil mahirap din namang mag-prosecute ng mga case na to on our own. So, we advise, no? In fact, right now, dahil nga because of the pandemic, ang daming instances nito. And thirdly, I should say, for our dear consumers also, no? If we can actually avoid yung mga ganitong incidents, no, I cannot overemphasize, being responsible social media users and sharing with others itong responsible use na to para matulungan din naman natin yung government na nag-handle ng sobrang daming mga cyber cases, no? So that will be our way of contributing to the administration then of justice, no? So if we can lessen,
you can be a pillar of this criminal justice system also as a community.
That's right,
of consumers and individuals.
So ayun nga din, thank you so much sa pagbabahagi mo ng knowledge ngayong araw na ito, Attorney JR.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
But before we end, Nadine, meron kasi tayong segment na before tayo matapos ay bibigyan natin sila na isang consumer responsibility. So ngayon din, ano ba yung...
Right. Or consumer's fact.
Consumer's right.
Dito sa Consumer's Desk, it is our hope to leave everyone watching our show with practical and actionable insights and how to better adapt to the new normal. Ngayong araw na ito, pag-usapan naman natin ang consumer's right to redress, karapatan na magreklamo o umalma o makuha ang patas na pag-aayos. The right to redress is to receive a fair settlement of just claims, including compensation for misrepresentation, shoddy goods, or unsatisfactory services. With the growing domination of social media and the internet in our lives, marami sa atin ang na-expose sa mga trends at phenomena online. Isa dito ang buying and selling, kung saan marami ang nangyayari sa Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Marami ang naloloko na online consumers who transact using social media sites na masasabi nating maraming nakaabang na fraudulent sellers. At lokohin ang inosenteng limitado ang kakayahang mamili through their hard-earned money. Dapat marunong tayo magbasa, manaliksik at tumingin online bago bumili, bago mag-add to cart or mag-mine. Alamin kung saan ka pwedeng magreklamo kung magkaroon man ng problema. Kunin ang mga numero ng katransaksyon at ang mga identity nila. Mag-report sa kinauukulan kung merong mga violation. The right to redress.
So ayun, before we end, first, we would like to thank our special guest for tonight, Attorney J.R. Ipak. Napakaganda ng discussion natin.
Thank you very much,
Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Vanessa.
So, baka may gusto ka pong i-greet o pasalamatan, Attorney J.R.?
Just one, Dean and Vanessa. I would like to greet my wife, Dr. Natasha and Esteban, and my 2-year-old son, Max, who's watching us right now.
Ayan.
Hello po.
Yes. So, ayan din, no? Ako naman, magpapasalamat ako and mag-greet ako sa aking parents, Boy Oyas and Roslyn Oyas in Cabancalan City, and sa mga kapatid ko, Jerlyn and Nicole. And also, Bebita Dog and Cat Clinic. If you want some vet services, you may visit their clinic. They are open every day. And also, Arvin Figueroa na nanonood talaga sa atin every Sunday din.
And of course, I would like to greet also my parents in Iloilo. Maayong adlaw sa inyo tanan-tanan, and to our friends all over the world, madamo gid nga salamat.
Din mag-greet lang ako syempre sa mga staff natin and crew, to Direct Clifford and Direct Banch. Thank you so much for always guiding us sa ating mga episodes, and also sa akin na stylist na si Miss Angeline Marmeto, and my makeup artist Jen Tigtig. Thank you so much. And Chichay, thank you so much. And to my mommy Ann, hello, and Tito Jack. Ayan.
This has been a very informative program today, and we would like to thank our viewers in Facebook and YouTube, wherever you are in the world. We are very happy that you're always with us, learning together, and we will continue to bring you episodes that would help you to become a responsible consumer. This has been your Dean Rodel Taton.
And this is Vanessa Marie Oyos.
Tayo ay magsasama-samang muli dito sa mas pinalakas na boses ng consumer. Ito ang Consumer's Desk!